Good morning to all farmers and welcome to our free webinar on wheat mid-season management. My name is Rawlings and I will be your moderator for today's event. And we are delighted to have you join us for this important event. And as we delve into the secrets of successful wheat farming, and we are live on the Agribusiness Media and SeedCo Facebook pages. And please do note that we do have a question and answer session after all the presentations today. So please do send them via the chat here on Zoom, or you can comment if you are watching us live on the Agribusiness Media and SeedCo Facebook pages. And also note that this will be an opportunity for you to directly interact with our esteemed presenters today. So we do have joining us today, Dr. Clyde Maponga from the Cell Insurance, and we have Mr. Mazuru with the Insurance Council of Zimbabwe. We also have Wendy Madzura. She's the head of agronomy services with SeedCo. And we have Dzidzai Munhutu from the ZFC. We also have Grace joining us from Drone Solutions, and Rutendo joining us from others formerly known as Agritechs. So no doubt that we do have the right experts to discuss wheat farming business. So without further ado, allow me to invite our first presentation, and it is in the form of a conversation between Mr. Mazuru from the Insurance Council of Zimbabwe and Dr. Clyde Maponga, who is with Cell Insurance, and they are discussing a crucial topic of wheat risk management.
Hello and welcome to this exciting episode of risk management and insurance, particularly targeting agriculture. We are here in Koromonzi, where we can see here a sea of wheat behind us here at Sebenza Farm, where we are going to be discussing about the importance of agriculture and risk management in insurance, particularly targeting at winter wheat, which is a very strategic and important crop to our country here in Zimbabwe, an agro-based economy. There are so many aspects to risk management and insurance that we need to look at, and sometimes that we tend to overlook. And some of the key risks that I'm going to be highlighting, and one of them would be, obviously, the crop being a winter wheat is likely to be affected by adverse effects of frost. It's also likely to be affected by hailstorms when we are now approaching the rainy season. We are also likely to be affected by early rains in the event that we are affected just before we harvest. So those are some of the risks that are likely to affect us, but not to ignore fire, one of the loss-leading perils to our strategic crop, which is winter wheat. And of course, we also have unique diseases that might come in any time and affect our crop. But what is it that we need to do to manage all that is what we are going to be discussing in this episode. And joining me here is Mr. Mazuru. Mr. Mazuru, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Clyde. How are you?
Very fine. I'm so excited to be here looking at this healthy crop.
You can say that this is an excellent crop.
True. And of course, to have an excellent crop, you need to have good agronomic practices in place. And it starts with, Mr. Mazuru, one of the important things would be the timing of planting. It sounds very, rather, if I can say, common to many farmers to say it's winter crop, we just plant anytime. But to manage the risks like frost, it is really important to make sure that we timely plant our crop. For instance, here targeting the risk of frost, we might need just to look at how we plant our crop.
So Clyde, you are talking about timing of planting this crop. When should a farmer plant wheat?
Yeah, thank you very much for that one, Mr. Mazuru. And one thing that farmers should know is that timing is everything, like we always say. In April, the 15th is the ideal starting date to plant. 30th of May is the ideal end to the planting. But of course, we might have an extension to say the 10th of June. And after that, we heard recently that the government called a clause to the close of the planting window. It's very, very important. I think like looking at risk management in winter wheat, where if you plant within the ideal date, you are likely to attain the required, or rather the projected yield. You are also likely to protect your crop against frost, because if it coincides the flowering stage with the frost period of say end of July, it's likely to affect our farmers. So we always encourage them to adhere to the ideal planting dates to get the desired yield. Yeah, so by each day, by each week we delay planting after the recommended, we lose our targeted yield. Some can estimate it to be 50 kgs a week, and if you are targeting maybe an average of 5 tons per hectare, you can imagine if you delay by 4 weeks, you'd have lost 200 kgs before you even do anything. Farming is a business. We should also look at the aspect of the break-even point, where our input is equal to the value of output. So delaying the planting will result in us incurring losses that we might not even be able to recover. And over and above that, it increases the risk exposure to the farmer that the crop will be likely to be affected by disease pressure during the home period. It will also result in the farmer being affected by early rains that come in before we start harvesting. So we always encourage those farmers to then stop the planting and work with what's there.
In addition to what you have said, Clyde, let's emphasize that it is very important for a farmer to keep accurate records, starting from the seeds that the variety of the seed that he buys, the planting dates, the fertilization that he does, all the chemicals that he applies to the wheat. It is very important to keep that, and also to keep the records for a number of years. The farmer wants to keep on improving year to year, so he needs to know how he performed the previous year and where he can improve. So he looks at the records of the past years and he can see where he can improve on. And also, let's say the farmer is insured and needs to claim from the insurer. The insurer wants to see those records. If the records are not there, there is no proof that the farmer applied this fertilizer or the farmer applied that chemical. So we need the records to be in place for a number of years.
That's very true, Mr. Mazuru, and that actually moves in line with the standards for the hazard protection, and the way you would want to make sure that even the records at the storage facilities where you are storing your chemicals, where you are storing your fertilizers, to make sure that everything is stored to the right point, and all the records of chemicals that are coming in, chemicals that are going out, and even the way you pointed out on the herbicides. I'll just point out on a case where one farmer applied atrazine during the summer cropping, and then when he tried to plant winter, it had a residual effect, and it actually affected the next crop. So that actually helps even the planning process, which is very good in risk management.
What can you say about the population density of the crop?
That's an interesting one, and I will also comment on why it's a yield function to the farmer. When we talk of farming as a business, one of the key components or success factors rather would be the population density. We might we need to have the correct population for us to have the desired yields. And also I'll just comment on the issue of tillering, which is one important aspect that we always want to make sure that we encourage our farmers to have the best tillering. The reason why we plant in April and May is that we want to make sure that during the cold period of June, our crop is at a stage where it's supposed to increase the number of tillers, which are a direct function to the yield of the farmer. So we need to make sure that we plant in the desired period, the desired or required density, so that we have the required yield.
Okay, I understand you, Clyde. Wheat is a winter crop.
Sure.
But we all know that during winter there is no rain.
Yeah.
So a farmer has to be watering the crop. How does one water his crop of wheat?
Yes, so there are different irrigation methods that farmers can employ. I'm sure you can see here we are using a center pivot to water the crop. We also do have lateral irrigation where we do have sprinklers to supplement the moisture. Considering that we will be in the dry period of the year, we need to make sure that we have the right irrigation equipment that discharges the right amount of moisture to support the crop. And it also aids in risk management, Mr. Mazuru, in the sense that for us to reduce the impact of frost, we need to make sure that we water our crops regularly and in the right times. Maybe, for instance, if you start your center pivot during the 2 a.m., 3 a.m. period, so that it completes the cycle as we get to maybe 5, 6 a.m., it reduces the chance of frost affecting our crops. So irrigation is very key. Over and above its effect on yield, it also helps in risk management.
Okay, I understand you, Clyde. You could also talk about fertilizing the wheat and maybe also what diseases may a farmer expect.
And thank you, Mr. Mazuru, once again. I think it's always important that we highlight to our farmers the importance of disease management. And I think I highlighted earlier on that good agronomic practices, that means we also need to be on top of disease management as well as insect management. Okay. One way we can manage that is that when we plant at the correct date. Okay. So you see, let's always put emphasis on that. Why? As the temperatures get warmer, there is increased disease pressure. Okay. You can talk of your rusts, you can talk of your smarts, all these diseases that can come in and affect your crop. They can be managed by then planting much earlier, that is between the 15 April and maybe 30 May, so that as the temperature warms, maybe end of July, August, your crop would have accumulated enough days as it reaches closer to the days to maturity, and that's one way we can manage those diseases.
Okay. What level of mechanization may a farmer require in order to get a good crop of wheat?
No, that's an interesting one. Mechanization, of course, it really helps our farmers to have the right equipment and the right mechanization at the farm to get the desired yield. But however, we sometimes are found lagging behind in terms of level of mechanization. We do have even our small-scale growers with little machinery, with little lateral pipes of irrigation where they can just pump water. They can still be able to grow the winter crop. Maybe what you just require there is that you need a power backup, maybe your generator to support the pump. You also require the lateral pipes for irrigation to support the crop. I think that's the basic requirement that you need. Of course, we've got methods then you'd want to use maybe for tillering, for drilling, all that, but that can work for anyone really.
I understand you. So maybe we need a lot of training for maybe our A1 or our A2 farmer to be able to do this crop?
Sure. I think everyone, it's our responsibility as farmers to make sure that we feed the nation. It's not just us. If we need to feed ourselves, we contribute to the National Grain Reserve. Whether you are small or you are a commercial grower, you can still do it, and you can still grow wheat, provided you have maybe the required irrigation.
You mentioned that we could lose grain maybe through theft, through fire, which points to me that insurance is very important for a farmer. Very important,
Mr. Mazuru. And I must highlight that in terms of how it works for risk management, I would put it as a sieve. They are what we call on-farm risk management practices that involves selection of the field, selection of the variety, selection of the fertilizers, application of those chemicals that protects the crop, even weed management. That is what we call on-farm risk management, which are within the capacity of the farmer to do it. But over and above that, there is that component, I call it the residual component, that which you cannot do anything about. That involves, if it rains, a hailstorm comes through, a windstorm comes through, a fire just comes through, and it destroys the grain. It means the farmer must be insured, where you have a fallback plan, considering that majority of our farming is being done by financiers and contractors. They will come to you, Mr. Mazuru, and then they want collateral. If you used your tractor, they will collect it. But if you have insurance, it will help you to recover in the event of such things happening, and also even settling your obligations at the of the farmer.
You mentioned about fire on the crop, Clyde. Maybe we could just mention that the farmer needs to maintain fire guards around the crop to make sure that any potential veiled fire does not encroach onto his crop. And also to add on to that, where we are here today, you can see that he has got a number of separate fields. He has got this field, there is another field over there. So he has divided his crop into various fields.
A very good spread of the risk.
He has spread his risk. If a fire affects this field, the other field is safe.
Sure. And just also to put emphasis on that one, we require maybe at least 10 meters from the crop to be clear of all combustible material. That it includes dry grass, or if anything, the farmer should make sure that there's green grass which is not combustible. And also to point out on the issue of fire, when you are not sure of your surrounding, because we've got neighbors, we need to make sure that we practice what we call back burning. Burning the surrounding area makes sure that when the fire comes in, it's got a stop before it even reaches your fire guard. So that is actually very important, Mr. Mazuru.
Also, there is another potential benefit that a farmer can get. Of course, he is going to sell wheat and get money from there. But in controlling the fire in his field, he can harvest grass that is around the field and use it as hay and use it as mulch maybe somewhere.
That's very important, and it's a plus, so to speak.
I think we have not yet talked about crop rotation.
That's important.
Some of our farmers have got very small pieces of land, and usually they just plant one crop every year. But that brings the danger of diseases in the crop. Maybe you are a better agronomist than myself, where you could do.
So I think that's very true. We have brought in a very important point that we might have missed out in our discussion. Crop rotation actually forms a basis of good risk management. Why? In terms of diseases, there's what we call disease cycles. And bringing in a different species altogether, it means you are cutting the cycle for that disease. And if you are looking at, I would just try to put maybe a relatable example of solanaceous crop. crops. Maybe you are looking at tomatoes, you are looking at potatoes, where you are likely to be affected by late or early blights. So the only way sometimes you can manage those diseases to make sure that you cut in the cycle by bringing in a different species altogether, and it actually improves on that. And you highlighted that sometimes we have got a small piece of land, but monoculture is not the way to go, where you are bringing in crop year in, year out, because it's got an impact actually on the yield to the farmer, because in terms of the nutrient extraction down there, there's same activity over and over again. You might actually result in the reduction in the quality of the soil itself. So all farmers are encouraged to plant a crop rotation, and make sure that this year I've planted maize, then maybe next year I come in with soya beans, something like that. Okay, that actually brings a very important and my favorite topic, Mr. Mazuru, where we talk about the claims procedure. That's one area where most people are interested in. Now that I have my insurance, how does it come into play to make sure that I get compensated? And I'll just also try to highlight the process itself where frost has happened. We encourage our farmers to make sure that they notify their insurers within 72 days of occurrence, where you have realized that there's frost in the morning. Then you report to your insurer or even your insurance broker, so that the process of assessment kicks in, and then the crop will be monitored throughout, and then when the yield reduction is then ascertained, then the payout comes through.
You have said it very well, Clyde. But in addition to that, it is important for the farmer to know that if he lodges a claim on a crop of wheat, as an assessor will come to assess the extent of damage, so that he can determine how much you have lost. Because you might only have lost maybe, let's say, 1 hectare out of 5 hectares. You should not be compensated for what you have not lost. So an assessor will come and do his assessment, which he'll hand over to the insurer. And also, you will only be compensated at the end of the season, when the final price for the wheat has been determined, and at that point the insurer can then determine what level of compensation they can give you, because you should be compensated according to what you were supposed to benefit out of your crop of wheat.
And that's the beauty of insurance, where we look at indemnity cover, where we are bringing you to the position where you were supposed to be. And you rightfully said that at the end of the season, maybe we are now able to quantify. For instance, let's say we would have agreed that my cover is for 6 tons per hectare. Then at the end of the season, after you've been affected, you are actually getting 7. Frost means that maybe at the time when it occurred, it might be at tillering stage, which actually promoted the crop to tiller even more and actually have a better yield. So I think it's also important that we highlight that process, Mr. Mazuru, because from the time the claim is lodged, the assessment and the monitoring of the crop up until the extent of damages are certain at the end of the season. Some usually expect that when frost happens today, I should be compensated tomorrow, when we cannot even ascertain the damage itself. So I think, thank you very much for bringing that up.
Clyde, the farmer should know what is insured in his crop of wheat. Are you insured for fire? Are you insured for hail? Are you insured for disease damage? Because the insurance cover will specify certain perils and may exclude some perils as well.
Very true, very true. Just taking covers, I think just also to bring out there, to bring it out there to our farmers that there are some covers that are there. Sometimes we can get even an input cover where you want to make sure that you protect what you you'd have invested in the farm. So at the end of the day, we would want to make sure that are you able to recover what you have invested, and if not, the insurance comes in to compensate you what the difference would be. Then we also do have our indemnity, or sometimes our yield multi-peril covers, like you said, which covers specific perils that sometimes you said frost, fire, flooding, and early rains covered into one. But then if disease is not covered, then a disease comes through, you have insurance cover, but if it excludes diseases, then for disease you are not compensated. So farmers need to make sure that when they are buying the insurance cover, they should know what is it that it actually covers and what are the exclusions. Sometimes you hear complaints that because of the fine print of the insurance document that some insurance don't want to pay. But really, if it's a contract like that, if the farmer really understands, and then when there's a genuine claim, it has to be paid. And if there is no claim, then there's no claim. Then we build a very resilient insurance industry.
Yeah. We could also add, Clyde, there are developments that are coming into insurance these days. Worldwide, they are now talking of weather index, which is, we can say, is a new type of insurance. And maybe the farmer may want to know a bit more about weather index cover and how that may be different from our traditional insurance covers.
Interesting. Though it's technical, I'll try to make sure that I simplify so that our farmers understand. I think you rightly pointed out that we having discovered that sometimes we have farmers who are financially excluded from the traditional covers. You pointed out maybe small-scale farmers, they don't have capacity to buy the commercial or maybe multi-peril covers. They would want maybe just weather index, or we call it parametric insurance, where we are looking at one parameter or a proxy for loss, which then affect the extent of impact is directly related to the loss itself. We look for that one. I think we do have, let's say, frost can be a very good parametric cover, where we are looking at frost itself. We are looking at how the satellite determines the temperatures in the area. If they go below zero, the freezing point, then there is a genuine claim for the farmer. And that one is not even related to the assessment process. The way it works is that when the satellite picks out that there is frost there, automatically it triggers for an extent of a payout depending on how the cover is structured. But I think that one we also, need to do a separate session on that one, because we do have covers like drought covers, which are some of the common parametric covers that we actually now have in the country, though it's still developing, but it's there to help even our small-scale growers.
Many thanks there, Clyde Maponga and Mr. Mazuru from the Insurance Council of Zimbabwe for discussing such a crucial topic on wheat risk management. And would like to extend our gratitude to the Insurance Council of Zimbabwe for sponsoring that segment. Thank you once again. Next up, we do have Wendy Madzura from SeedCo, and she will enlighten us on irrigation scheduling, good agronomic practices, and more tips on how we can do it right. Wendy, please go for it.
Thank you so much, Rawlings, and thank you, Agribusiness Media, for organizing this time-year's webinar and for making sure that relevant and key partners agglomerate together so that we add value to the farmer. Allow me to start off by sharing one clip that covers the good agronomic practices that was taken at the start of the period when most farmers were getting into the management stage of wheat. Hello farmers, did you know that hardening is a critical stage in wheat production? Hardening is the stage at which farmers terminate or stop irrigating their wheat crop for about 2 to 2.5 weeks to promote the development of tillers. Tillers are important because they give us the number of heads that we can expect if the tillers are reproductive. So here we are seeing that this particular plant, upon counting, we will be able to get the number of tillers that were formed. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 9 tillers on this plant. Assuming that they are all reproductive and give us heads, it means that we are set to get a bumper harvest. Having done that, after the hardening stage, farmers are implored on to irrigate their wheat crop first so that they remove the stress which will have been instilled on the crop over the 2 or 1.5 week period. After irrigation, the farmers then come in with the application of top-dressing fertilizer, followed by the application of a herbicide, guided, of course, by the weed spectrum in the field. But today, I also want to highlight the importance of irrigation scheduling, where farmers need to be guided by the soil type that they have and the irrigation capacity that they have. Here we see that they have a rain gauge, which they have also put in the field to measure the amount of water which will have been used to irrigate the crop at any given time. So the target here is for them to apply 22 millimeters of water every week, and they will be coming in to check at the rate at which they are losing the water through the evaporation pen. Farming is a business. You need to start right, employ good agronomic practices, and remember, it always starts with the right seed. And yes, this is a beautiful crop of SC Select and SC Serena established at Homefield Farm in Banket, Mashonaland West Province. So that was a clip of the summary of the management practices that we employ on our farmers to start and continue to employ as we get into the final lap of wheat management. Thank you so much once again. Welcome to the mid-season management webinar, wheat management webinar. And we are very excited today to have started on a high note where we were being given some insights into the insurance, which we can also do in terms of risk management or risk aversion in our wheat crop. We really want to thank our Insurance Council of Zimbabwe and through Mr. Mazuru and Clyde Maponga for that well-timed and well-explained presentation. And indeed, we do think there's always a fine print. So in terms of the wheat management presentation, the background is that wheat is the second most important cereal crop after maize. And the annual wheat consumption in Zimbabwe is at around 360,000 metric tons. So last year, there was a record wheat production that went well above the 375 ton mark in the 2022 season, which is the highest since commercial wheat production began in that in this country in the 1960s. And this year, we are reliably informed by the Ministry of Agriculture that we have established over 86,000 hectares of wheat, and the yield target is at around 4.8 tons, which is to say the yield target will speak to the good agronomic practices, which this webinar is going to unpack. So the target yield of volume of wheat for the 2023 season is above 400,000 metric tons. With that said, variety selection plays a pivotal role in us achieving the wheat yield target that we need to get. But today, since we are already at the peak of the established crop, we'd just like to highlight some of the baking qualities that our farmers should expect from the wheat varieties that they established from SeedCo, SC Duna, Select and Serena, with emphasis on Select and Serena, which are the new improved hybrids that we have on the market. So in terms of baking quality, wheat should have a high protein content of above 11%. It should have a taste density of above 78 kgs per hectoliter. And our varieties, all of them, they range from above 75. So the mark at GMB or at the other markets where you'll be selling your wheat is at around 75 kgs per hectoliter. And the wheat varieties in terms of protein that we have at SeedCo, as you can see there, they can go as high as 13%, 13.5%, when the minimum required for you to get into the premium wheat category is 11%. Then the grain protein content should be above 11%, and while the wet gluten should be above 25%. So with the SeedCo wheat varieties established, and as we are seeing, as we move around, we are anticipating that our farmers will get both the qualitative and the quantitative value out of those varieties. So in terms of the time of planting, as highlighted by the Insurance Council, it's important for you to catch the planting window. And we emphasize this, and at this point, that's when you start seeing some of the side effects or the negative connotations of planting late, where now if you manage to plant on time, you'll be able to harvest your wheat before the rains, and high insect and disease pressure will be avoided because the heat units during winter will be lower. As it gets warmer, you see a higher incidence of diseases and insect pest pressure. And the double cropping is also achieved at the right time, with some farmers wanting to come in with the tobacco crop, some want to come in with a potato horticultural crop, some would want to do their maize well on time. So there's a ripple effect of delays if you plant your wheat late. So now as we are moving around, we are seeing that our crop is at different stages, but mostly ranging from the booting heading stage. We haven't seen a crop that is now at the ripening stage. So the heading stage, in which we are also seeing a crop that is now at the grain filling stage for those farmers who planted in the last 2 weeks of April, as we were seeing as we were moving around in the past 2 weeks. So today, I want to summarize the good agronomic practices by giving them the acronym FINAL for Final Lab, where the F stands for fertilization, the I stands for irrigation, the N stands for nurturing, which means going above and beyond the normal or the ordinary for you to get extra value. The A stands for assessment, and L stands for love. For with love, everything that we do, anything that we touch becomes fruitful. In terms of the fertilization, you need to take soil samples. There's no shortcuts in farming. You need to get a custom-made fertilizer recommendation guided by soil analysis. So we hasten to mention that even the Ministry of Agriculture released the map of Zimbabwe showing that most of our soils are acidic. So we need to hammer on that point and make sure that at some point our farmers adopt this principle of soil analysis. If you haven't managed to do it in the season that we are in, you can still do it in the coming season as you prepare for your next cropping program, because farming is an ongoing business. So in fertilization, it's important for you to be guided by the nutrition requirement of the crop, which you call the NPK ratio. And this should also speak to the values or percentage of fertilizer nutrients that you're going to get in each individual bag of fertilizer. So you need to buy fertilizer by the numbers, the nutrient constitution that is inside the bag. So the general recommendation for the parcel of fertilizer, which by now we have passed 300 to 500 kgs per hectare, but allow me to talk about the top dressing fertilizer, which ranges from 350 to around 500 kgs per hectare, give or take, guided by the soil type, guided by the previous crop. Sometimes wheat benefits a lot from residual nutrition from a crop that is the heavy feeder like tobacco, or a nitrogen fixing crop like your soybean. So this is also something that you can also ride on. But in terms of the rough rule of thumb, using AN or urea, you can range between 300 to around 350 kgs per hectare. Split application being recommended, particularly for lighter soils, sandy soils, or clay loam soils, which are most likely going to lose that fertilizer through leaching if there is abundant moisture application. So some farmers apply foliar fertilizers as boosters, particularly guided by the crop, what the crop is communicating. If the crop looks deficient in a particular nutrient, you can come in with foliar fertilizers. And then also in terms of nutrition management, you can come in with an extra application of a specific fertilizer like ammonium sulfate, say it's around day 35, day 40, or maybe 2 weeks after your last top dressing fertilizer application, for you to bring in that nutritional value in terms of protein that then adds on your qualitative value or yield that you're going to get. So in terms of the I in the acronym FINAL LAP, final. So we are talking about the irrigation requirements and scheduling, where irrigation requirements for wheat range from 450 to 600 millimeters. As you have heard, that it's a crop established in winter when there is no irrigation which is going to be available. So it's important for us to understand the complete volume of water we will require before even establishing the crop. Why starve it at a stage when it's already established and it's already grown? So in terms of the soil, you need to understand your soil type, as it also governs the frequency at which you're going to come in to irrigate. For sandy soils, which have a low water holding capacity, you can come in at day 7 to 9, applying 30 to 35 millimeters of water, while in clay or heavier soils, you can come in at day 10 to 14, applying 40 to 45 millimeters of water. Center pivot irrigation, in some instances, our farmers apply 22 millimeters of water every 5 days, but we have seen that some farmers are coming in with more irrigation, particularly with the center pivots applying between 25 to 30 millimeters of water twice a week, and also guided by the growth stage at which the crop will be. So just continuing on irrigation scheduling there, you need to check before you come in with the irrigation, the level at which the water or the moisture is in the soil. You check with a probe, or you can just create something that you can press into the ground and check. But there are some sophisticated modern technologies that are available where you can use a moisture probe, which is an app linked to your phone, which can tell you if your moisture content is lower than it is supposed to be. Then you can check after. A well-irrigated crop gives a lush green, open leaf, which is shiny, while a stressed wheat crop is bluish in color, it has a spiky nature, it is rolled up, and it also might give you less tillers and smaller heads, ears, or spikes. Then the N in the acronym final stands for nurturing, which today we want to give credit to the weed management that you need to employ, where you need to understand the weed spectrum, which will also speak to your choice of herbicides. Your previous crop will also guide the weed the herbicide of choice that you're going to put in, where if you had maybe maize, you might want to come in with a product that will identify the maize in a wheat crop when they're in the same family. Then in terms of pest control, regular scouting should work. Determine the economic threshold level or injury level before they are reached, so that you can also then make informed decisions. Scouting should be done in a systematic way. So nurturing is also important. It means you're going the extra mile to make sure that your crop doesn't have stress, it doesn't have anything that is affecting it. But pest control also feeds into assessment, which is the A in the acronym, final, for final lap, the final lap in wheat production. So the A, the assessment, is encompassed by 3 subunits where you need to scout. After you scout, you then need to react timelessly. After you have reacted, you need to act. So these are the 3 subsections of the assessment process that you need to do. But in terms of scouting, you need to know, first of all, what a healthy crop looks like. What are you going to then say or benchmark against if you don't even know what a healthy looking crop should be like? So you need to benchmark. Then you need to know the common problems associated with that particular crop, so that you'll be on the lookout. You need to know the common problems that are associated with the time that you are in. So you need to be reading the news. You need to be on WhatsApp group relevant for farmers, to be hearing some of the challenges that some farmers are facing, so that you won't be found wanting. You need to collect information in a systematic way, where if you're doing a stepped method, if it's random, don't just scout the field at the edges. Go inside and do checks inside the field from the bottom of the plant or to the top, so that you don't miss anything. You need to also look at the big picture from the field level, the field perspective, where you are seeing the overview, where maybe there is a point where fertilizer application was skipped, or maybe where irrigation is not efficient. In the previous week, when we were doing farm visits in Kwekwe, we saw that they were on the strands on the pivot, there was one strand which was applying less moisture, and it was evident in the level of the crop where it was slightly lower than the rest of the field. So this was then attributed to the new irrigation team that was employed this season, who did not know the importance of the size of the nozzle, which is applied on the span of the pivot. So they just took any nozzle and then they applied it. So that span was applying less water. So it's important for you to look at that. Then you also need to do record keeping. Record keeping plays a pivotal role in you making informed decisions in the future at every stage. Record, check, record, so that you'll be able to then know when and what to change or what to improve. You need to consult agrochemical specialists, fertilizer specialists, seed specialists, so that you are also informed, because they might have information that you don't have. Consult even your neighboring farmer, seasoned farmer, who has walked the road before you. If they are friendly enough, they will share the notes with you. So you need to act timelessly once you have seen a challenge. And there we are seeing a drone which was applying the last application, fungal application, fungicide application in headlands on Tuesday. So that is drone technology that you can use. You can use it for the application of agrochemicals. Even planting, I'm told you can use it, and you can use it even for quillia bed management. So the L in the acronym final, for final lap in wheat production, stands for the love. The love encompasses everything. You need to have love for your environment, which will then push you to have a sustainable view in terms of your operations at the farm. And you need to preserve the environment for future generations. That comes from love. So you also need to love your crop. If you love your crop, you go beyond and far beyond where you're supposed to reach, because you also know the value that the crop is going to give you. And you won't be in a position you feel obliged to provide as much as you can. Then you also need to love yourself. Self-love is what is going to give you the energy and drive to increase the effort that you are putting in a desire for you to have higher productivity, which then speaks to higher profitability for you to then also be able to do other things with the money that you get. So if you love your grind, you will work 0 days of your life. Then the end game in terms of harvesting, the termination of irrigation, you need to know the stage at which your crop is matured, which is the physiological maturity. But then on top of that, physiological maturity might happen at a time when the crop still has a lot of moisture, above 30%, above 35%, but you need to let it dry down. But you can check in terms of the outlook of wheat when you have about 75 to 80% of the field yellowing. But then yellowing alone as a symptom is not enough for you to then say your crop is ready for you to start harvesting, because it might be associated with poor irrigation practices, a disease that might be occurring. So you need to marry the senescence outlook with the days to maturity associated with the variety or crop in question. Then you also need to stop irrigation once the area under the neck of the plant, let's say this is the head of the wheat crop, and then this is the neck area, this is the head or the ear or the spike, then the neck area turns yellow, this is the peduncle. So once this turns yellow, you can stop your irrigation. You need to plan for harvesting well in advance, even at the planting stages, so that you'll be able to have a successful and a smooth run in terms of your harvesting. Know the combine harvester you're going to use. Check the efficiency when the harvesting process is happening, so that you don't incur losses. So this is field day season, the time where we are in. So make time to avail yourself at field days for you to have a look and learn appreciation of what's happening. So the bigger picture on the right, there was a field day in Pepsia Farm in Goromonzi, and on the left, there is a field day in Nyazura at a farm, a middle post farm. So there are activities happening, small scale, large scale field days are being done. So make time to avail yourself at such field days so that you get value. So in terms of wheat production summary, you plan ahead, your soil conditioning should be on point. You start at field capacity when you're planting. Here we are now just conscientizing those who want to get into wheat for the next season. Then establishment irrigation is important. So in conclusion, I just wanted to encourage someone to love whatever they do and do something that they love, so that they can also be around things that make them smile, because good crops makes us smile at SeedCo, because they also mean that a farmer is going to be profitable and it has a ripple effect across the value chain. Thank you so much, Rollins. Over to you. Isn't it exciting for us to know that there's a crop established in the 2023 winter wheat season of wheat, which is already at the grain filling stage? This is a crop of SC Select, and they've also established a crop of SC Nduna on over 100 hectares, where we are at ZZC farm, at Misty Mike Nyabadza's farm, and we are happy to be seeing that this crop is flourishing. So today we want to talk about the importance of employing good agronomic practices. And on that note, we would like to implore on our farmers to employ good agronomic practices that include fertilization, irrigation, management of their crop, and regular scouting. And for us to do so, we can use different implements that include a boom sprayer. You can spray using a knapsack sprayer, but you can employ some new technologies that are available on the market that include the use of drone technology. So we are going to be hearing more on the use of drone technology from Drone Solutions.
Hello farmers. So today we've got an Agras T40 drone that we are using to improve the efficiency of our farming. So this Agras T40 is used for crop spraying, crop health monitoring, as well as mapping. So we are as well employing the Agras T40 to assist in making sure that we scare away all the killer pests that affects the yield that farmers are supposed to be getting. So this drone is greatly improving the efficiency, and as well as the cost management is really an efficient way to use when we are doing our agricultural practices.
Thank you so much. On that note, it's important for us to invest in anything that improves on the yield. As we are seeing here, that the head or the spike is giving us an average of 10 to 11 sets of spikes on either side, which is a good yield. So we want to also hear from Susan from Pele Investments about the importance of investing in renewable, sustainable energy solutions that include solar.
Thank you, Wendy. Hello, farmers. Our solar systems, they do operate in two modes. We do have the off-grid mode, which farmers can use the solar to irrigate when ZESA is not available. And secondly, they operate in the on grid mode incorporated with the net metering, where we are saying the ZESA is available, but we are still going to be irrigating using the solar plant that we have invested in, and at the same time have an opportunity to export any excess power that is generated by the plant onto the grid for virtual storage. We are encouraging farmers to invest in these reliable, sustainable and cost-effective solar irrigation solutions. And here at ZZC Farm, we are running 2 by 110 kilowatt water pumps and a 55 kilowatt together with their 6 center pivot systems.
Wow.
Happy farming.
Thank you so much, Susan, for that. Happy farming indeed. You will be smiling all the way to the bank if you start with the right seed, employ good agronomic practices, and partner with people who improve the efficiency of your farming operations. Farming is a business. You need to always start right, and remember, SeedCo is the home of bumper harvests.
Many thanks there, Wendy, for such a great presentation. Indeed, it starts with the right seed. And also thanks for covering the good agronomic practices in the acronym FINAL, which stands for fertilization, irrigation, nurturing, assessment, and love. And thanks again, Wendy, for such a wonderful presentation. And if you do have any questions for Wendy, please do type in the chat room. You can comment here on Facebook if you're watching us live on Facebook, on the Agribusiness Media, SeedCo, Parents Council of Zimbabwe Facebook pages. So next up, we have Dzidzai, and I see he has already heard his presentation, and he is going to cover and will discuss with us soil health, weed and pest management. And after Dzidzai, we are going to have Grace from Drone Solutions, and you have seen in this presentation that innovative technological solutions are key to the success of our wheat farming. So please do hang on for a presentation. In the meantime, Dzidzai, please go for it.
Thank you, Rollins. Good morning to you all farmers. Thank you for tuning in. Let me just start off with my presentation outline. I'll start off with the tips on successful wheat production, the wheat control options, nutrition management for your wheat, as well as your pest and disease control. So for much of the successful factors, since we're in the mid-season, we will look into the aspects beginning on some of these stages which we are. It's now starting from tillering, probably floral initiation, going on to the botting and this is in maturity stages. So basically that information has been said already by the presenter before on the seed rates to be considered at planting, etc., of which we are now past that stage, and we then look forward to be doing those systems for the next crop. So what's important for us is to be able to achieve what we call a field capacity as we do our irrigation scheduling. It really depends on the irrigation types that we have, but it's important for us to be able to monitor the amount of water that we are applying in the field so that we don't do an over application of the water that ends up leaching the nutrients that we would have applied during the irrigation process. So it's important for a farmer to master their irrigation cycle according to the soil type, according to the prevailing climatic conditions, as well as the equipment that they are using for their irrigation. So, well, you need to add in your wheat crop from say 2 to 3 weeks after it having emerged, and you also need to ensure that as you do your harvesting, you do it in a manner that minimizes your losses. And I'm sure the insurance guys have mentioned the importance of record keeping, as it has several implications with getting benefits from the insurance council or even for planning purposes for the next crop. But going forward, looking onto the wheat herbicide, we've got a product called dicamba or Banvel, which is applied at a rate of 250 to 300 mils per hectare. This one basically controls your volunteer soybeans and some other broadleaf weeds. But it's important for the farmer to take note that you can best control these weeds at a stage of 3 to 5 leaf stage, where the weeds will be most vulnerable. And you can also use your products such as your tribeneuron methyl and metsaffron methyl, the different application rates, depending on the different application rates, depending on the way in which you would want to apply them. But these ones basically control your broadleaf weeds, where you control the weeds such as your fat hen. And I want to reiterate to farmers that when you apply these powder or granular based products, be it an insecticide or a herbicide, it's important to add a wetter. A wetter is just a product which enhances the efficacy of your product when you apply it onto the target pest, be it a weed or an insect. So it's important to add a wetter into the spraying mixture so that you get the best control. Then you can also use your MCPA to control your broadleaf weeds as well. And you can there is this aspect most farmers ask us to do with tank mixes. You can consider using your products such as a bacteria and MCPA for good control in terms of the tank mixes. You can also tank mix your metsulfuron and your dicamba in the same space. And you can also do your dicamba and MCPA as you aim to control or have a good efficacy of your weeds. Remember, some of the products cannot be mixed because in some instances you may have challenges to do with incompatibility of your pesticides. So it's important to take note as you read the label and plan for application of our products and execute them. But now I wanted to have a brief description of these two products, your metsaffron methyl and your tribeneuron methyl. These are post-emergence herbicides, and like I said, you can apply them using your boom sprayer, your knapsack sprayer, but for most farmers, they do weed on a large scale. So you find that most of them, they use the boom sprayers to apply these herbicides, and some of them, some small-scale farmers, they use the knapsack sprayers as part of the equipment, but all of that results in what we call the ground application of the herbicide. So I decided to dwell on this for you to be able to understand the kind of weeds which they control. You've got your stingblight, your Datura stramonium, the apple of Peru, blackjack, morning glory, etc. But like I said, it's important to control your weeds at a critical stage where they are most susceptible to the herbicide, where uptake of the herbicide is much more rapid compared to the older leaves that would have developed thicker cells that then may be difficult to take up the herbicide. So during that stage, you apply your herbicide, you have good control, and you have a cleaner field of a cleaner weed crop. In terms of nutrition, at this point, well, we recommend that you do your timing right. Obviously, your basal fertilizers is guided by your soil analysis, which you do at ZFC, and you want to take note of your top dressing fertilizers that you apply it 3 and 6 weeks after your crop has emerged, because each growth stage of wheat is critical. It has to be met with the critical nutrition in the rightful quantities, in the rightful amounts. But you can also consider doing your foliar fertilizers for the supply of trace elements. At ZFC, you've got a product called foliar 15, which you can then use to supply your trace elements. So for the major elements, you need to consider these major elements in their rightful amounts. Your NPK, as well as your sulfur, because they are quite key in having a robust wheat crop. Right from the start of the germination process, the emergence, and you have your development of your spikelets, and your pillars, and eventually forming the yield. So for us, generally, as we are, this is based only on a rough rule of thumb. For us to be able to deliver a 7-ton crop, you would want to have 180 kgs of your nitrogen, 80 to 100 kgs of your phosphate, and 40 to 50 kgs of your potash or your K2O. But I must also highlight to farmers that it's important for farmers to understand that as you do your soil analysis, you can have your a customed product, a customed basal fertilizer from ZFC Limited, which you can then apply onto the field. You realize that for most of these basal fertilizers, you can use your ordinary compound D 7-14-7, the double D 14-28-14, cereal blend 6-23-23. But we can then tailor make your product to say it can be 7-18-21, it can be 5-14-18, depending on the amount of nutrients that we would have seen or observed or recorded from your soil. So it's important for the farmer to optimize their soils and condition them to be able to get a yield targets of 5 to 7 tons or even above if they are able to manage the crop very well, considering the other aspects that have been said by the previous presenter. So I also want to give a key highlight to farmers that there is no benefiting in applying excess amounts of fertilizers to your soil for you to be able to get a higher yield. You need to optimize. It is quite key. You can't cheat science. So it's important for the farmer to have the best recommendations done on their soil for the crop nutrition for the rightful crop that they would have grown, for them to be able to cut down on their costs and achieve yields in a very optimal manner. But for your top dressing fertilizers, you use your ammonium nitrate. You can use from 400 to 500 kgs per hectare, depending on the basal fertilizer. We can work backwards from the basal fertilizers that you'd have applied, get the amount of nitrogen that you'd have supplied, and then the balance is the one that we then supplied through our top dressing fertilizers, able to reach the 180 kgs that I've highlighted, the 180 kgs per hectare that I've highlighted earlier. That's when you get the best yield from your crop. Then for your urea, you can do 300 to 350 kgs per hectare, depending on the circumstances as well. Then, but it's important for a farmer to follow up with to apply urea in a moist soil, and as well as follow up with irrigation after applying it, so that it doesn't volatilize. That is changing its state from the solid state to the gaseous state whilst in the field. That's when you tend to have that the smell of your ammonia gas in the field. Then moving forward, for you to be able to supply certain trace elements, of course, I highlighted that you can do your foliar applications, which can be applied through the boom or through irrigation, but you can also use certain pesticides such as your copper oxychloride, which is a fungicide, to supply copper to your crop. You realize that you can so you apply it at 5 to 7 kgs per hectare, or you can even do some foliar applications using your boom sprayer at about 750 kgs per hectare, for you to be able to supply copper to your wheat crop. But you can also supply your zinc. But in this case, we recommend that you apply your zinc through a zincated granulated basal product, or even a blend, probably from a previous crop, because it then leaves some residues of that zinc. But the reason that we do this is because copper and zinc are antagonistic in terms of uptake in the site of action. So you then want to do, you need to be careful with your planning in terms of the application of your zinc. But as you want to supply your magnesium, you can use your dolomitic lime, which is one of the cheapest sources of your magnesium in your wheat crop. So you apply the lime, and you realize that for most sandy soils, magnesium is quite deficient, which is why dolomitic lime is most recommended in 5 tons of soil. Then for the pests and diseases, you'd want to control your leaf rust, your powdery mildews, the net leaf blotch. You use products such as your propiconazole, Shavit, and your Opera. Opera has a tendency of giving farmers some kind of yield advantage because of the way in which it works. There is a technical term called excellence, which then gives the farmer some additional yield benefit. But for you to be able, for other products, we also have other products such as your SeedCo and your Ethaphone, which you use during your tillering stages, semi-elongation, as well as considering the days, 50 to 60 days after planting, or 50 to 60 days after the crop has emerged or after planting. Then for your insecticide, you want to consider applying for the control of your aphids. You want to use your dimethoate, you want to use your Thunder. We also have a new product, Spike Extra, which has been doing well for the control of these aphids. And then your tebuconazole or difenoconazole for the control of rust and powdered mildew, as well as your propiconazole with those different application rates. Then there's this other critical or key element that farmers need to take that they need to take care of, called the quillia beds. We've got there's two species. The one is usually dominant in winter, and the other one in summer for your small grains. And the quillia beds, they've got some serious damage that they cause. Was indicated each individual quillia bed can consume up to 3 to 5 grams of grain per day. But I've seen most farmers, they tend to have people around the field, if they do not have some chemical control method to apply to their field. They have people that would be ringing some bells around the field so that they minimize, they avoid the birds from landing into the field. So during the feeding activity, they tend to have some losses because most of the grains will be falling onto the ground, and rather than being consumed by the bird, they fall onto the ground and they are unharvestable and you can't pick them. So you would find that as a result of that, the losses that you would get per day would then get up to 7 to 10 grams instead of the 3 to 5 grams that would have been consumed by the birds alone. So at the end of the day, you can possibly lose the whole hectare, assuming you've got 1 million birds of a single roost that would have invaded your wheat field. Hence, it is important for us to be able to work together with the Ministry of Agriculture to be able to get and the national parks as well, for us to be able to get the best control methods that are currently on offer. Is that it is the mandate of the Ministry of Agriculture and the national parks as well, for us to be able to have the optimum control of the best control of the quillia beds and minimize yield losses. These have got to be reported, and I'm sure my colleague that is coming up will then make mention of these quillia beds and their damages they cause. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Those are my contact details, and I'll await your questions later after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dzidzai, for such a wonderful and informative presentation. Next up is Grace. I know you have been waiting for her presentation. She is from Drone Solutions, and she will enlighten us on how we can integrate such solutions in our farm business. Grace, over to you. And just a reminder that after Grace, we will have a presentation from the Minister of Agriculture, and Ms. Nongonema is on standby, and she will share with us highlights of the season.
Thank you. Okay. Pleasant good morning to you. Is it still morning? Yes. Morning to you, everyone, farmers. I would like to welcome you to our presentation. I'm very excited actually to hear a lot more about, farming in agriculture, and just the exciting part is being able to speak about it from a technological perspective. So today we are going to be sharing about drones in agriculture. So I'm just working to sort out my presentation so everyone can be able to see it, and then we can have a better understanding of it. So it's not a secret that, everyone has been working hard to find better ways to be able to understand when the yield is going to be coming out, or the weather, or just basically understanding the different disadvantages or advantages that could come with farming a crop. And I'm happy that it's open to a lot of farmers, because we have people that are just starting as well. So they're going to be able to learn even from the baby steps. We're going to try and speak in layman terms and not too technological, so that everyone can be able to understand. So in this presentation, as you can see, these are the farming zones in Africa. So Zimbabwe sits We have the subtropical dry forest, and we have the tropical rainforest, and then we have a little bit of the temperate steppe. So basically what it does is shows us that Zimbabwe is at a very pivotal level when it comes to agriculture. So it's important to make use of technology and drones, because technology is advanced, and each and every day we're being able to do more things through technology and through drones. So some of the uses of drones in agriculture are your fertilizer and seed application. So drones can actually help you to be able to disperse your seeds in a way that doesn't make some of the seeds to be bunched up in one area, but it disperses them in an equally useful way. They also help with disease detection. If you have any crops that are suffering, we were talking about the Keelia birds, some of those crops could be damaged or they may have diseases, and drones can be used to actually be able to detect those diseases, so you can be able to make or to take better measures against them. And then we also have the crop health analysis. That's also just analyzing how healthy your crops are at the moment. So it's not necessarily to do with are my crops with disease at that time, but more to do with, okay, are my crops healthy? Are they on the better side of yielding more, or they're just suffering, they need a little bit more water, or things like that. Then we also have crop and animal counting. That's to be able to, you'll find for large plantations, people that usually do sugarcane, bananas, they have a lot of estates. So what drones do is they can help you to be able to find out how many of those sugarcane plants you have, or how many of those trees you have in your plantation. And then we also have surveying. Drones can also be used surveying. So that means just being able to look around the area to see how healthy your soil is. That's also combined with the topographical surveying that also helps you to see the steepness of the land, if it's steep, if it's level ground, so that you can be able to plant your crops without any harm. And then we also have the crop spraying, which is the one that is, I think most people are very excited about, as well as us at our team. The crop spraying drones are basically to help us with crop spraying in such a way that we don't concentrate our chemicals or fertilizers in one place, but it can also help us to, evenly distribute the fertilizer throughout the crops themselves. And then after that, we're going to talk about crop spraying capabilities in the drones. So with the drones, I'll speak about the advanced drone that we're currently using right now, which is also the one that just got into the market, the T40 drone. They have functions like automated and manual spraying. So you can be able to spray manually or to spray to use automation to spray. So that's when you then use your remote controller, and then you can say, okay, I'm going to map this area, this is where I want to spray. And then you can do something else whilst the drone is spraying on your behalf. And then this is what they mean when they say plan once and fly forever. So if you have a piece of land that you want to spray, if you map it correctly on the remote, you can be able to go back to the same piece of land to spray without having to re-enter the coordinates or the GPS positioning of that particular map area. And then we have field mapping capabilities, like I just stated. We also have accurate GPS positioning. This one is actually one of my favorites, because you find a lot of the times when people are crop spraying, as human beings, you could spray on one area, and then you could, get someone call you, or you could be disturbed or another way. And then by the time you want to go back and take it up again, you will find that you will have to, try and find yourself in that and say, okay, where did I leave off? But with drones, they can actually go back exactly where you left off and take it off from there. So that's actually another exciting capability of the drone itself. And then the pressured spraying, they actually have pressure pumps on the drones that can allow the spraying to be easier for you. And then we're going to talk about the T40 drone, like I said in the previous slide. So the flight time for this particular drone, the T40, 40 stands for 40 liters. So it carries 40 liters of spraying chemical in it. And then the flight time is usually for 18 minutes. And this is without the payload. And then with the spraying load, we have about 70 minutes with a takeoff of 90 kgs weight, and the hovering spreading with full payload is 6 minutes. We also have the mapping function of it. When you pair initially the Agros T40 can do the mapping itself, but for better yielding and for better results, you can pair it with the Phantom 4 multispectral, which is actually a drone as well, that allows you to perform variable spraying and spreading operations with precision based on the farmlands prescription map, as well as the feature is being used for spraying for fertilizers on rice, fertilizers on defoliants, on cotton crops, on nutrient solutions, and on soybeans, and on the corn itself. And then the Agros charging time, it usually varies also with your type of charger. Some people would want to find, okay, which charger will I be using to be able to spray? But with the crop spraying drone itself, you can be able to use it. Sorry about that. You can be able to use your UHD camera, adjustable gimbal, enable easy capturing of desired view, and the farmland and orchard images can be captured in real time, and local maps can be generated using the remote controller with the DRTK2 mobile station. The system detects land boundaries and obstacles automatically for quicker planning of flight and routes over farmland. We also talked about the maximum flight radius. It can be set to 2,000 meters if everything is being held constant. And then the total weight of the drone itself with the battery is 38 kgs, and without the battery, it's 38 kgs, and with the battery, it's 50 kgs. And then these are just some of the specs. I'd spoken about them in the previous slide, but it's just good to reiterate. So like we said, it's 50 kgs payload spreading, and then 40 kg spraying payload. And then the second one is the active phased array radar binocular vision. So that means it can be able to zoom in and actually do the mapping for you, which makes it easier for you as you do your job or you do your work. And then the dual atomized spraying system. So it does release very small particles, which allows you to be able to spray. You don't want dense particles of the drone itself or of the chemicals to be able to be released. So that's also very good if you can get an atomized spraying system, which it does have. And then moving on to the next one. So for the hectares that's covered, you can cover, within an hour, you can cover about 21.3 if it's a farmland. So for most farmers, you can actually be able to cover 21.3 hectares. Depending on your spraying rate as well, you can be able to cover that within your farm. And then if it's an orchard, you can cover about 4 hectares per hour. And then if it's for the spreading now, which is for your fertilizers, you can cover about 1.5 using your spreading fertilizers. And then now we're going to talk about the advantages of drones. So a lot of people tend to fear technology. And I mean, it's understandable because we've heard so many misconceptions. We've had, people saying what they've said about technology, but it's also good to look at the advantages that it brings us. And with drones in agriculture, it can help us with precisely delivering, that's your fertilizers, your herbicides, your fungicides, your pesticides, your seed, and your desiccant application. So we talked about being able to spray fertilizer. So like you find with the Achillea birds, right? We know that birds naturally, when they see human beings, they tend to run. So the good thing about the drones now is at night, it can be able to go above the bird, which is very rare for the bird to react quickly because the danger is not facing it, but it's more above it. And as soon as it sprays, then they can be able to take care of the birds immediately. And it can be you're looking at a close to 95% success rate of these Achillea birds being eliminated. And then drones can also be used nearly on any kind of crop. And I like that right now we're talking about the wheat crop, and this is one of the crops that the drones can be used on, especially. This is inclusive also of your rice, your citrus trees, your cotton, and much more. And then there's reduced operation costs, i.e. it's cheaper than airplanes. So a lot of people would say, okay, drones and airplanes are simply that it's around about the same thing, but it's actually cheaper to use a drone because even the spraying, like for example, at our company, we offer spraying services. So you find that to spray a hectare, it's actually more affordable than hiring an airplane to be able to spray the same hectare. So it's actually cheaper as well. And to be very honest, airplanes are not always available. So drones, the good thing is you can actually, get access to a drone, or you can come through to offices and we can be able to lend a drone with our pilots to be able to take care of that for you. And then the drones can also be used even when grounds are wet and muddy, and unlike boom sprays and tractors, which can't move around the mud. So that's an advantage because the drone doesn't have to touch ground, it's touch base. So that means you can spray it above even when the weather is, not favorable, when it's muddy, when the area itself is too muddy. You know that you can be able to do your work with a drone. And another advantage about the drone is that drones can actually fly in the rain. So that's actually a good thing, but not a lot of people would be farming during in the rain at that time. And then we also look at there's no damage to crops, unlike boom sprays, which trample on crops with their wheels. So like I said before, drones tend to be higher above. So there's no, risk of, the wheels are going to damage the crops, or there's going to be, trampling of crops, or just damaging the crops in general, because there's no contact with the crop directly. And then we have seed planting machines. There's actually drones that can be used to plant your seed, as I mentioned in the first slide. And then it's also good to use drones because you can improve your crop quality and increased yield rate. So that's some of the advantages for drones. And then there's also drones that are used in, let's say, precision. So like I mentioned the Phantom 4 earlier on, it's good to understand the uses of it. So one of the keys to all of this is remote sensing technology, which makes use of multispectral imaging. So there are two types of maps that can be created with this kind of agricultural drone, and this is the RG maps. And these maps allow you to see exactly how much land you have to grow on to the centimeter and assist with crop monitoring over an extended period of time, which helps you to adjust from crop season to season. And then we have the NDVI maps. This map shows the amount of infrared light reflected in an area, which is an indicator of malnourishment and drought. So before you even begin to plant, this drone can help you to know, okay, the type of soil that I'm going to plant on, is the soil healthy enough? Sometimes the reasons why we end up having, bad yields or bad harvests, it's because we never actually took the time to look at the ground where we wanted to plant. I mean, it's good and it's exciting to be able to find a piece of land where you can farm, but it's also important to take the necessary measures to know if your soil is healthy enough. And, it makes the job easier even when you then decide to do insurance, like was presented in the first presentation. It makes the job easier for everyone because now the damage has been lessened by your, precision to know the type of soil that you're working on. And then I have a quote from Mr. John Ron, where he says, "Whoever renders service to many puts himself in line for greatness, great return, great satisfaction, and great joy." And this is exciting, like Wendy was saying in the previous slide. You want to do something that you love. You want to do something that you can wake up every day and say, look, I love to farm. And you can only do that when you've taken the necessary measures to make sure that you can have a fruitful and productive yield. So for those that want to find us on our social media platforms, we are on Facebook under Drone Solutions _ZW, on Instagram, drone.solutions.zw, and then on LinkedIn, we are on drone_solutions_ZW. Thank you so much for the time, and I'm going to leave time to the question and answer session at the very end, as Mr. Rawlings has indicated. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Grace, for such a wonderful presentation and for sharing with us your solutions there for the challenges that we face in wheat farming business. And next up is Ms. Nongonema from ADAS, formerly Agritech, and she will share with us the highlights of the season and also some strategies to control quillia bed. And Ms. Nongonema, you have 5 minutes, please go for it. And after her, we'll have a question and answer session. So please do keep all your questions and comments coming via the chat here on Zoom or via the comment section if you're watching us live on Agribusiness Media and SeedCo Facebook page. Ms. Nongonema, please go for it.
Okay, thank you very much, Rawlings. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for listening. We are going to share season highlights and strategies for quillia bed control for this season. We can go to the next slide. Yes, and farmers responded very well to government's call to put every square inch every square meter, which is irrigable and where possible under wheat. And as a result, I think from last year, I won't say much about it. Wendy has already talked about area, but what we are doing is just breaking record after record in terms of area and yield under wheat. While farmers planted early, we still have got a significant area which was planted in the later part of the season. That is the one that was planted after June. I remember there was someone who was talking about the importance of planting dates, and we said any area that is planted after 31 May, it's rather on the late planted crop. Though yes, we can manage it and get something, but it would be a late crop. As a result, we encourage our farmers to prepare early and stick to planting dates so as to achieve high yield, because in the game of farming, it's all about optimizing our yield, hence optimizing the money that we get from farming when we farm as a business, and also most importantly, optimizing on production and hence achieve food security. In this case, as you know, the government's motto was achieving wheat self-sufficiency, flour self-sufficiency for the country. The early planted crop, the one that was planted before the 31st of May, is doing very well, though establishment issues were experienced here and there, as well as tillering, which was not as expected due to warmer temperatures. If we follow the weather, we understand that this year it was one of the record-breaking in terms of warmth. It was a warmer winter season compared to other seasons. As a result, tillering, which depends on cool temperatures, was affected, more so for the late planted crop. Areas for improvement for the early crop, especially among smallholder farmers, we had a significant area which was put under wheat by the smallholder farmers. I think this is also record-breaking in terms of wheat planting. Over the years, it has been the prerogative of the large-scale farmers and the like, but this year, due to government intervention and support, we have got quite a significant number of farmers who had wheat under the smallholder farmers. So their biggest challenge is then land preparation and planting techniques. We are looking at farmers who are not mechanized, who do not have their icons, and they have to plant using hand. It becomes a little bit difficult, worse when they have prepared the area using ox-drawn or using other techniques. They do not have the icons, they do not have the planters that we have. So establishment and area preparation, land preparation was a big challenge for these farmers. We need to advise farmers more so that next season we can see how we can help them put area under wheat. We can go to the next slide. Yes, so we said, like I said previously, good land preparation, that is seed to soil contact, needs to be improved because this is very critical. Remember, on the yield determinants of wheat, one of the first yield determinant, apart from the seed rate, is also the establishment of the crop. How much of the seed we have put on the ground has germinated and will successively give us some production. There were fewer challenges in terms of nutrient and water management, as both were available and electricity challenges were swiftly attended to. This year, the government made a call to all partners involved, including ZESA, and we had WhatsApp groups just to report any challenges in terms of water, any challenges in terms of electricity, especially the faults, which were then attended to on a timely manner. Farmers who use this flood irrigation face the challenges of uneven water distribution. I'm talking of these small scale farmers who planted wheat. Some of them use flood as a method of irrigation, and in terms of distributing the water to all areas of the field, then they had challenges. This affected from germination, even crop growth was also affected, especially to those areas then which could not receive enough water. There's need to train farmers on best practices to ensure even water distribution if they are using flood. This is a training need that we are flagging out to partners and to everyone else so that we can help each other to come up with a solution for farmers. Equipment breakdown, though experienced here and there, still remains a challenge and is critical for farmers to service irrigation equipment such as pumps and pipes before the season starts. Because there's nothing as hard as when you are already in the season, you have put your fertilizer, you have applied you have put your seed down, you have applied fertilizers. All these are costs, labor, and time also. Just to find out that the pump breaks down, you need 1 or 2 weeks to repair it. You'll be losing out. Even if you plant early, it means the farmer will be losing out in terms of timeliness of establishing the crop. Also, farmers are encouraged to take cognizance of sulfur requirement in wheat. I won't talk much about this because I think Ms. Madzura has already done justice to crop management in wheat. So in wheat quality is very important and we need to improve on the wheat quality. Hence, they need to also concentrate much more on quality at this stage. The late planted crop is still at vegetative crop stage and needs extra management in terms of nutrient and water management. Why do we say it still needs extra management? Because we need fast growth of this crop so that we can beat we can cheat in quotes on the season and the crop matures and be harvested before the rains come. The late crop is unfortunate in that it is coinciding with high incidence of pests such as aphids, and this is when the crop is at a vulnerable stage. Hence, there is need for farmers to be vigilant in terms of scouting and fast acting in terms of control. When it comes to diseases, especially diseases such as fungal diseases, prevention is better than cure. When we start to see symptoms already, it's late. I think this has been alluded to before. So we really need to be swift and also vigilant in terms of scouting. If we normally scout twice a week, we encourage farmers, especially those with the late crop, to come in and scout even 3 times a week so that we can quickly control them if we have got any challenges. Weed challenges are also a problem for the late planted crop as the temperatures are beginning to warm up and the broadleaf weeds are becoming more active. Farmers are encouraged to come up with integrated weed management program, which must be executed early in the season. Because right now we are receiving questions of farmers who are saying we have got a lot of weeds in our wheat. How can we control them, especially smallholder farmers? Though it's a smallholder farmer, he or she has got 1 hectare, but you can't come in a wheat crop and try to weed it because it's not possible. So the control becomes a big challenge. We can go to the next slide, sorry. Yes, and on this slide, I'm just trying to say, especially in terms of weed management, knowledge is power. Use of chemicals must always be from an informed position. Farmers are encouraged to seek knowledge in every aspect of crop production, but especially in terms of pest and disease control when we are using chemicals. Here you can see this is a field of wheat which was burnt when the farmer tried to apply MCPA and dicamba. They applied them in high rate and it was also the wrong time. So you find the farmer won't be able to harvest. It can happen if not done at the right time. Next slide, please. Where I'm going to talk about quillia control strategies. Yes, we are saying quillia control. Currently, it is mostly being done by government, though farmers have got a bigger role to play. We are currently doing large-scale spraying of a chemical called fenthion, which is the most effective method of control at the moment. Birds fly, as you know, and it is difficult to spray them when they are flying, unless we target area where they sleep. That is the roosting place. So this is the area that the government then targets to spray. Can we go to the next slide? Yes, so government still remains committed to control quelea, and the motto this season is we do not want to lose any single grain to quelea attack. Quelea control program has been lined up through the Department of Migratory Pest and Biosecurity Control, and we have got Mr. Nyamasoka who are here with us. I hope he's still in the meeting. He will also help us to talk about what is happening in terms of chemicals procured, as well as drones. We have had a presentation on the use of drones in chemical control, which were recently acquired by government to increase efficiency and timely respond to quelea challenges. It is critical for farmers to understand that due to the thrust of promoting traditional grains, such as sorghum and pearl millet, we may get an increase in quelea, but government is putting measures to control the pest in time. And also, while the government controls the pest, that is the quelea bed, so that they do not cause economic damage to our crop. There are also issues around sustainable killing, where the government will not kill all the quelea beds in the area, so that we have got a sustainable number of the quelea beds. Can I go to next slide, please? Yes, so the control of the quelea bed needs cooperation between government and farmers in terms of identification of roosters, so that the control becomes faster. Yes, we have seen beds in your wheat field, but where we would need help then is you first identify where they sleep, that is the roosting place, and when you notify your local extension worker, or he or she can help you actually identify the roosting place, so that when the control team comes, they'll easily just do some other surveillance that is needed and then control the beds. Government controls quelea at rooster level, but control within the farmer field remains the responsibility of the farmer. There are other methods that are available for controlling quelea within the farm, such as bed scaring, use of vuvuzelas, tapes, that is old cassettes, and also people beating tins to make noise so that the beds are scared away. Chemical control at farm level is available, though it needs multiple sprays after every irrigation to ensure continuous control. This becomes very expensive for the farmer in terms of cost of the chemical, the equipment used, that is the fuel, human resources, etc. And it is important to note that quelea attacks wheat mostly when it's at milk dough stage. Though in rare instances, I've not heard much of this, but some farmers also say their wheat has been attacked when it has reached the hard dough stage. But we encourage farmers to report any quelea attack so that we save the grain that we have already grown. Mr. Nyamasoka, if he is in, he can come in for a minute or so with one or two words.
Mr. Nyamasoka, if you can, yes, you can share your contribution. And whilst he is trying to share his contribution, I would like to thank Ms. Nongonema for such a wonderful presentation and for sharing with us the highlights of the wheat season. And as they say, we need to measure what matters, and thanks very much. And that encourages us farmers to play our part and support the ministry. And so we'll go straight into our question and answer session once we allowing Mr. Nyamasoka to come in. The first question that we have here is for drone solutions, and it says, what is the cost of drone hire per hectare? I don't know, Grace, if you can that one. Grace,
Sorry about that. So the cost hire per hectare is $24 per hectare for the spraying. I think I also saw another one that was asking how much the drone is. So we're looking at a starting price of $24,000 US, and that's dependent on how many accessories you decide to buy with. So you'll find when the drone comes, it comes with a generator, it comes with batteries, it also comes with a kit that you will use. So now what you'll find that other people prefer to buy 3 or 4 batteries, but that's now all dependent on their preference. So we're just looking at a starting price of $24,000, depending on how many batteries or accessories you decide to get with your drone.
All right, thanks for taking that one. Then the other question is saying is do you sell or hire? I think you covered that in your presentation. I don't know if you can quickly answer that one.
So we sell and we hire. You'll find that some people may opt to, have us, hire. They want to hire first so that we can spray on their farm so they can see and they can trust that the drone actually does certain things. So we actually do both. We do sell the drone and we hire it out. And I think I also saw another question talking about a license. So basically the license is we license the drone for you when you buy it. So when you buy the drone, we license it for you. And if you want to be able to fly the drone, maybe you want you don't want to have our pilots come and fly it for you. If you want to be able to fly the drone, we also have an academy, Drone Solutions Academy, that does training. We actually currently have training taking place. So if you would like to learn how to fly the drone, we do offer training at our academy, Drone Solutions Academy. So you can still, get in touch with us on our social medias or even message us directly to find out some of the things that you would like regarding the training itself.
All right, thanks for taking that one. Then the next one here is a comment. It says, thanks, Wendy, for the final acronym. It has made the good agronomic practices easier to understand. And I have a question for you, Wendy. They are saying, do we have summer wheat varieties from SeedCo?
Thank you so much, Rawlings, for that. Clearly, our viewers are participating and observant because the summer wheat variety was listed amongst the varieties that we have at SeedCo, but deliberately I didn't go into it. So we do have a summer wheat variety. It's called SC Sahai. So in terms of yield, because it's produced in summer, when disease pressure is high, insect pressure is high, it's lower yielding compared to the winter wheat. So it will range between 3 to around 5 tons per hectare. But the disease pressure and the insect pest pressure will be so much that sometimes profitability might be a bit tricky. So we don't really push for it, but yes, we do have it. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thanks for taking that one. Then this one is for Caleb. It says, do we split AN in with farming?
Yes, we do. We do split the application of AN, mainly because if you do a once-off application, it might be difficult for the crop to take it all up at once, and you then risk having your AN or urea leached out as you'll be doing your irrigation cycles. So it's good to split it into half so that you give the crop 2 bits. And it's all taken up well. Probably 98% of it will be taken up, and probably lose just 2% of it.
All right, thanks, Caleb. Then this one is for Ms. Nongonema. It says, thank you for sharing highlights of the season, and we are seeing that. Okay, they're saying indeed we are going for growth. Okay, it's a comment there for you, Ms. Nongonema. Then another question is, can I apply herbicides using drones? I don't know who can take that one. Is it Grace or Caleb? Grace, can you take that one?
Sorry, yes, we can apply herbicides using drones. I think I had mentioned it in one of the slides that it works for both. I think I talked about atoms in particular. It works for both the seeds, and then it works for the fertilizer. Fertilizer can come even in powder. Sometimes it comes in liquid. So it really depends, but it does. Drones can do that for you.
All right.
And also to add, Rawlings, there's also a matter of to do with the label. It's important for the farmer to understand what's written on the label. There are ground application recommendations, and there are also area recommendations. So there are those recommendations for the aircraft, and some which is work, yes, which is in progress and which has got to be continuously worked on to do with the drone applications. But yes, they can be applied.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then this one is for Dr. Clyde Maponga. It says, how long does it take to get compensation? I joined late. after applying for insurance?
Oh, good morning, everyone. Thanks for that question. I'll just try to comment first, then answer the question. In terms of compensation, I think from our earlier presentation where we were saying that if you are insured, it takes normally 7 to 14 days when your application is accepted and you have your cover in place. Then the second phase would be when the loss has happened, what would be the loss cause? In this case, maybe we are saying I've been affected by frost, or there's been a hailstorm or a windstorm that has negatively affected my crop. Then in terms of the compensation, we are saying once the crop has been assessed as per the insurance contract and your target, maybe for argument's sake, you were saying you were targeting 6 tons and then you failed to hit the mark, maybe as a result of frost, then you get 4 tons at the end of the season. Then the difference would be the compensation that you get from your insurance. So it depends on the type of loss that would have happened, when it would have occurred, and the time of the assessment. So for fire, we say if your crop is gutted by fire, say in September, the whole field is raised down, and the assessment is done today, maybe within the next 5 to 10 days, you would have your compensation. But for periods like frost and those weather-related elements, it takes a bit of time because it requires the continuous monitoring of the crop till the end of the season, where we can then ascertain the damage and quantify it.
All right, perfect. Thank you for answering the point. Then I think we'll go back to Mr. Nyamathoka for his comment. Then after him, we then have shots from all the presenters, and then we close the meeting. Mr. Nyamathoka, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. A good day to you all. Just to add on to what Ms. Nongonema was saying in terms of the chemicals availability, I think we have 5,000 liters, that is, I think, in South Africa, coming on our way, just to confirm that the farmers, they are safe. And currently, we still have enough chemical that can bridge us from the time that we receive the 5,000 in our current situation. And I would also want to tell the farmers and everyone here that we've got farmers and individuals in Ipo Valley who have been doing extremely well by harvesting these beds with the use of nets. And I think as government, we've also started the procurement process of those nets so that we encourage different provinces to actually get into filia bed harvesting with the use of nets, because most of the people, they want to consume these beds. So rather better consume these beds with no chemicals in them. And we have a pest command group, which is doing very well. I think we'll also share with most of you where any reports of any filia bed causing any havoc can be reported immediately, and attention is given ASAP. In terms of the drones, I think most of us have heard and have seen, and on the news and newspapers, that the government has received 9 drones. We are happy to say Drone Solutions, that is currently in the meeting, are the ones who supplied us with the drones, or the 9 drones. Thank you so much for that. And we are in the process of having about 10 of our pilots under the migratory pest being trained to operate these drones. And very soon, I think next week or in a few days' time, you see some of these pilots in different provinces encouraging the control of our filia beds through the use of the drones. Later on, we also have IPM strategies that are coming through from different stakeholders. We've got Best Farm in Clean House and UNDP as well, which is also assisting us in trying out a new laser technology just to be able to scare away the beds. And I think we'll be updating as soon as possible. But so far, I think we are okay. Any problems, kindly report them or connect the farmers to the Migratory Pest and Biosecurity Control Department. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Nyamasoka, for sharing with us the great work and support from the Ministry of Agriculture and its partners. Thank you very much. And now, if we can have shots from our presenters, we'll start off with Clyde Maponga. Dr. Clyde Maponga, any parting shots before we close?
All right, sorry, I was struggling to unmute. Thank you very much for our panelists and everyone for tuning in. I think it's a collective responsibility for us to boost our yields, to make sure that we collectively manage the risks that are associated with our farming in general, particularly this strategic grain wheat. I would like also to comment that we would like to commend our farmers for taking heed for insurance covers that will then respond, so that we don't necessarily overburden the government when it comes to compensation, and when we lose out due to various loss-leading perils like weather-related elements, and also anything that might happen to upset our efforts to build reserves for the strategic grain. And I'll just thank you again, Rawlings, with Agribusiness Media for the broadcasting of this session. We've had feedback that farmers are tuning in, and thanks so much for everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Doc. Then next we have Wendy.
Thank you so much, Rollins, and thank you to all the presenters who took time to give detailed presentations. Thank you so much. We also learned a lot. It's a learning journey, and we also managed to pick one or two things. Thank you to all the presenters who presented today, and to the farmers. I just want to implore on them and remind them that we are at the final lap of wheat production. So we need to employ good agronomic practices religiously, remembering that fertilization, irrigation, nurturing of the crop, assessment, and loving the crop will make a difference between us getting a ton, 5 tons, 8 tons. So it's up to us to make sure that we also hit that last mark and make sure that we increase productivity and profitability. And the farmer should always know that the master's eye is the best fertilizer. So there's no substitute for you going to visiting the field. The farmer's footprint should always be on the ground, checking on everything. Final lap, let's get into the final lap aggressively so that we increase profitability and productivity. Thank you.
Many thanks, Wendy. Then Caleb.
Thank you, Agribusiness Media, for the opportunity for us to be able to interact with our farmers. Farmers, thank you all for listening in. And let me just remind you all that let's read and understand the labels of our products so that you get to know the appropriate steps to follow as you be applying your product, and also to be able to plan your crop rotations, because some of these chemicals, particularly the herbicides, they have got a residual or a follow-up period which you need to take note of so that you don't get to affect the next crop. Consider nutrition. Do it right, do it well after having analyzed yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. Then next up is Grace.
Thank you so much, Rawlings. I think the most exciting thing is being able to be part of a platform like this. I think I would like to just, like Wendy was saying, to thank everyone who presented, because it definitely was a learning curve for each and every one of us here, and to also encourage everyone who is doing this farming thing to say, look, sometimes you have to be patient with your crops, and you have to understand, the more you know about your crops, the more you learn the different ways to make it better, the more you learn different ways to make your cropping life your farming life even better, I think you will find that there will be better yields, because all these people are here to actually help us to be able to yield high yields at the end of the day. So I just want to encourage everyone, and to also, teach more young farmers out there, because at the end of the day, we're getting into a whole different generation, and the more we pass on the baton to the next generation, we'll be doing ourselves a favor as a country. So thank you with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grace. Ms. Nongonema.
Okay, thank you very much, Agribusiness, and also thank you very much, presenters and everyone. It has been exciting to be part of the platforms. What I just want to say to farmers is we have walked the greater miles of the journey. Let's just put the final lap, like Wendy is saying, and prepare for harvesting. Let's look for the combine harvesters. Find out where they are, hire them out, and also just have them in place, not to wait till the last day. when you want to harvest, to look for a combine harvester. Also, in terms of marketing, let's acquaint ourselves with them. SI in terms of the marketing arrangements for which is there, so that we get the best out of the crop that we have established. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Then Mr. Nyamasoka, anything?
Probably I would want just to say to everyone, let's keep in mind that every grain counts. Let's combine all efforts and we'll get the best yield. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For our farmers and other stakeholders who attended, your participation has made this event a success. We do hope that you got the knowledge, or the knowledge that we shared today will enhance your wheat farming operations and move you towards a more prosperous and sustainable agribusiness future. Remember, the future of farming is in our hands. Let's continue to learn and grow and prosper together. Thank you once again, and see you at our next webinar.